Welcome to Channel Japan. I'm Mai Demizu.
And I'm Makiko Tsuda.
Every week, we bring you the freshest information out of Japan from our studio here in Tokyo.
From the economy to culture and even foods, if you want to find out what's happening in Japan right now, this is where you'll find it.
These are topics for today.
In Project Japan, giving overseas tourists a trip to remember with a hand from a helpful assistant.
In World Business Satellite, muscle for the shrinking farming population, a report on the development of agricultural robots.
And also from World Business Satellite, reviving the declining forestry industry.
So let's get started. First up is Project Japan. Well, Utsuda-san, summer vacation has already started for some of us, but our topic this time is perfect for this season, right?
Yes, I agree. Now, especially for any of our viewers who plan to travel to Japan this year, this may be a report that they don't want to miss. But first of all, Demi-san, which places or sites do you think are most popular among overseas tourists?
Let me think. Well, I'm from Tokyo, so I would have to say Tokyo. But at the same time, Kyoto is very popular. And I heard that the Hokkaido is quite popular among tourists from Asia. Right?
I think you're right, yes. And according to data, for the total number of tourists that went to Kyoto last year was over 51 million. And among them, of course, many overseas tourists were there too. And especially overseas tourists have increased more than 30% from the previous year.
Really? Is that so? But I knew that the tourism slowed after the financial crisis and the earthquake and tsunami in 2011. But does this bounce back have to do with the weakening yen?
Yes, that's believed to be a big factor. But today we won't be looking at Kyoto, but we'll be looking at Ishikawa Prefecture, which we have a map over here. It's right here. Have you ever been there before?
Yes, I've been to Kanazawa city of Ishikawa Prefecture, and Ishikawa faces the Sea of Japan, is known for its seafood.
Yes.
And also being a center for many traditional crafts.
Ah, yes.
And I think it's a very popular tourist site.
Yes, you're right. It's certainly considered one of the must-go places among domestic travellers. But among overseas travellers, it doesn't have that much of a recognition like Kyoto or Tokyo has. And the local government also doesn't have the budget to carry out big promotions, which is an issue that other regions also face around Japan. And Ishikawa has launched a new initiative that may offer hints to other struggling tourist destinations. So take a look.
The Project Japan. An upscale traditional Japanese restaurant in Kanazawa, Ishikawa Prefecture. Entertainment provided by geisha is one of the highlights of local tourism. On this evening, the guests are from England. They are two well-known bloggers, Jamie and Katie.
You know, I think that when you come to a place like this, to eat this kind of food and served by girls dressed in traditional outfits, you feel like almost like time traveling and eating at the same time. Like it's very, very authentic feeling to me anyway, and very impressive.
Really enjoying the experience. The geisha is beautiful, so pretty, and the food is fantastic.
They upload the day's experiences on their Facebook page. Each has a different responsibility. Katie takes pictures, while Jamie writes short descriptions. Blogging about travel is common nowadays, but they aren't just regular tourists. The pair is actually here on a different mission. They were invited by the government of Ishikawa Prefecture. The purpose is for them to discover aspects about the region that have been overlooked and promote local tourism.
We want to understand the type of scenery and culture in Japan that are considered attractive through the eyes of foreigners.
A local official first took an interest in Jamie and Katie through a project initiated in the wake of the 2011 earthquake and tsunami. At the time, worries about the nuclear plant disaster led to a sharp drop in overseas visitors. Facing an uncertain future, local tourist agencies decided to recruit volunteers to spend 100 days traveling around the country and write about their experiences. The pair was among those who took up the offer.
And being a journalist, I kept felt
We just want them to be honest and tell the world about the situation in Japan after the disaster. That's all we require.
The pair even visited Fukushima Prefecture and actually reported on the radiation levels in the region.
Very small, which means that there's no problem at all. It's really sad talking to the people in the shops because for them nothing has changed, but their life has got very, very hard all of a sudden.
Their on-the-ground reports caught the attention of the media outside of Japan and are said to have contributed to the return of tourists to the country. This time they are undertaking a project to freely travel around Ishikawa Prefecture for 2 weeks and document their experiences in their signature style.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Facebook-based projects before. You're almost starting from nothing with foreigners. They will never have heard the word Ishikawa or Kanazawa. So you need to not just tell them what to do when they get here. You need to give them a reason to come here in the first place.
On this day, the two visit a winery that makes wines from locally grown grapes. Local residents are hoping that people from other cultures will also take to the wine.
Very sweet.
A taste that's not to their liking. It's clear from their expressions. If they don't like something, they're not going to be polite or pretend.
Not changing the type of grapes, just the number of bottles of what they already produce, is that right?
Katie expresses interest in the design of a wine barrel in one corner. She takes a picture and quickly uploads it to her Facebook page. A different perspective that surprises the Japanese guide.
I'm surprised by what she takes pictures of. Katie captures objects on camera with her own aesthetic sense. It's very interesting.
Maybe it helps that I don't see it every day. If you're Japanese, maybe you just walk past it because it's normal life. But for me, every tiny little thing here is different, it's unique, it's unusual.
This is the project coordinator Hiroshi Kuchiki, the president of a local travel agency. He realizes that there's still a big difference between what Japanese want to see and what foreign tourists are interested in.
Enjoy. Japanese tourism business cannot focus yet how to get inbound business from all over the world. So each country has each specific subject, but cannot focus for markets yet. So that's maybe one of problem.
Facing the Sea of Japan, Ishikawa Prefecture has long been known for its spectacular views and many tourist attractions. But a major disadvantage was the inconvenience of travel compared to places such as Tokyo and Kyoto. Next year, a Shinkansen line to the region will begin operations. Local governments see it as a perfect opportunity to draw in tourists from overseas. The key will be to hone in on regional highlights that appeal to visitors.
Government always says target number of the tourists, but on the other hand, we think quality of tourism is very, very important. Otherwise, we follow the number of the tourism. On the other hand, maybe we will lose the business as well.
On this day, the pair visits a shop run by an umbrella craftsman that's not listed on any guidebook. Carrying on the traditional techniques of umbrella making from around the 17th century, it is steeped in history.
The letter says Momotaro.
The Japanese guide talks with the 90-year-old proprietor Hiroshi Matsuda, inquiring about the characteristics and designs.
Registering this part takes 3 hours.
But Katie points her camera not at the umbrellas themselves, but at Mr. Matsuda. Her interest is in the craftsman.
He feels obligation to continue.
I see. And is it right that is anyone learning now from him, learning the technique from him?
I have no apprentices. I've turned away everyone. My father used to have about 20 apprentices. They all set up their own umbrella shops. Then, in 1955 or so, Western-style umbrellas came into style and sales plummeted. The former apprentices used to come and complain to me about my father, that what they were taught was useless to run a business. Since then, even when my own children said they wanted to become my apprentice, I refused.
Throughout their travels, the pair expressed the most interest in local craftsmen and the people living in the region. They say Katie's pictures of local life and Jamie's simple yet honest descriptions are what attract readers.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's really impressive to see so much family history and expertise all under in the same place. You know, he obviously knows so much about not just the technical side of it, but the philosophy behind everything as well. It's very impressive.
The pair reports on the attractions they discovered with their own feet and eyes to local residents as well. Taking part are inn operators and others involved in tourism.
Travel writer, and something that we've noticed throughout our time visiting Kanazawa and Ishikawa is that at the moment a lot of places are not ready for foreign tourists. In particular, in regards to English information being properly presented in English.
We want them to point out any issues so that we can improve the situation and attract many tourists.
Mr. Kuchiki, the project coordinator, believes that this is only the beginning.
So we are on the way. Kanazawa Ishikawa is actually a very small place. Nobody knows in the world. We need more develop to introduce ourselves. We need to improve our quality of service and hospitality. So we are on the way. So.
honest impressions of a short trip to a place not on any guidebook. Through word of mouth, a remote region may eventually be transformed into a tourist destination that attracts many.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could do this? We make things like this possible through the power of chemistry. We're the Kaiteki Company, Mitsubishi Chemical Holdings.
SMBC Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation.
Myanmar. Red. United. 세계의 조선. Passion. Spirit.次の 프리미엄 필드.
Welcome to Tokyo Skytree. This is the grand panoramic view from 450 meters. Here you'll experience the unforgettable. Look, enjoy, be amazed, and be awestruck. That's what Tokyo Skytree is all about. Japan's latest landmark, Tokyo Skytree.
You're watching Channel Japan. Up next, we have a video report from Nikkei Online Edition. So, Utsuda-san, what is it about?
Yes, we have some footage on a certain exhibition held in Tokyo, so let's have a look. Now, this is an expo for makers of food processing equipment, and a big crowd drawer was the latest sushi rolling robot developed by Suzumo.
Really? This is the sushi rolling robot. This part is shari, right? Or the rice part of sushi.
Yes.
It comes out very fast.
It is, isn't it?
Wow.
And in fact, this robot can make 4,300 of them in an hour. Naturally, it's the fastest of its kind in the world.
We have clients who demand faster speeds. That's why we speeded this up to 4,300 rolls per hour.
Now, you might remember we actually introduced this robot in a previous report.
Yes.
And at the time, it made 3,600 rolls in an hour, which is about one every second.
Wow.
But the latest model works 1.2 times faster by increasing the number of motors inside.
Well, I think it will be very helpful for popular rotating sushi chains with long lines of people waiting. I just wonder about the quality, though.
Yes, they've also improved on the quality. And if you can take a look at the comb-like parts inside, by using these, the rice grains aren't cut or crushed, allowing the rolls to come out with the soft and fluffy texture they have.
Wow, that's very interesting.
This recreates the technique of sushi chefs of rolling the rice so that there's air inside. That's quality. Japanese food is becoming popular around the world, and many restaurants overseas have adopted our robot. We export it to 70 countries now, so you'll find it being used in many places.
And today we have the actual robot in the studio, and this is Takashi Kondo from Suzumo, which developed it. 改めてよろしくお願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。
では早速なんですけれども、こちらのマシンを動かしていただいてもよろしいでしょうか。
はい、ではスイッチオン。
わあ、早いすごい。
すぐ出てくるんですね。
すぐですよね。どんどん取らないと間に合わないですね。
早いですね。こう見てるとなんかこう下からシャリが生まれてくるようにも見えません？す
ごいスピードですね。
魔法みたい。出来上がったシャリにネタを乗せれば美味しそうなお寿司の出来上がりということなんですよね。
これぐらいね、同じ形で同じサイズで均一に握っていくのはもうとても一般の人じゃ無理だと思いますし、
そうですね。
人でもねちゃんとした職人さんじゃなきゃできませんよね。
前回スタジオに持ってきていただいた時は、すでに1秒間に1貫という、それでも十分早いと思ったんですけれども、それでもお客様の中には満足されない方がいらっしゃったんですか？
ここ近年ですね、日本の回転寿司さんどんどん大型化していきまして、それで出ていくお寿司もですねどんどん増えるようになりまして、でそれに伴ってですねこれを使っておられる方の習熟も上がりまして、1秒に1個のスピードではむしろ遅いぐらいだというふうに言われまして、でそれで今4300貫まで作れる、寿司ロボットを開発しました。どうぞ。
はい、どうぞ皆さん。はい、
ありがとうございます。
はい、確かに
ね、ふんわりで
見た目でもふわふわしてるの分かりますね。
お米がね確かに丸く全部粒が整ってますもんね。
そうですね。
切れた感じがないですね、見たところ。
お米の粒を生かしてますね。きちんと。
ちょっと触っちゃう。あ、本当だ。ふわっともうキュッとまとまってるだけなんですね。だから多分食べた時にこうほころっとすぐ
口の中でとろけていく
感じなんですね。面白い。
優しく握れるんですね、ロボットもね。
海外でもどんどん展開されているというふうに出ていましたけれども、実際はどんな状況なんでしょうか？
東南アジア市場ですと今までシンガポール、マレーシア、それからタイというところが中心だったんですが、ここ1、2年はですねインドネシアですかとかベトナム、それからミャンマー、カンボジアというところからも問い合わせが来ますし、実際に使ってもらっているお客様も出てくるようになりました。
またアジアの方になるとお米の種類も違ってくると思うんですけど、そういったことに対してはどのように対応していくんですか？はい、
この機械の方でですね、硬さですとかあとシャリの密度ですとか、そういうのも調整できるようになっておりますので、
すごいですね、優秀ですね。今日はお越しいただきまして、小野さんどうもありがとうございました。Next, we bring you a segment called Takumi from Science View, a program produced by NHK that introduces the latest developments in science and technology in Japan.
Yes, now Takumi literally means artisan in Japanese, and it's a word often used to describe a person with exceptional skills, a certain craft, a master technician.
Yes, that's right. So what kind of artisan will we be meeting today?
Yes, our Takumi today is a craftsman of speakers.
Speakers, what kind?
Well, we have a picture over here. This is it. It measures just 1 centimeter in width.
It looks very thin. I assume it requires a lot of skills to achieve this.
Yes, it does. And it's not just the size that's special, it also has another unique feature. So take a look.
Hi, I'm in Koto Ward, Tokyo. Today I'll introduce you to a Takumi who has created a speaker that is gaining world attention, and it has also been used around us in our everyday life. Let's go.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Yamamoto.
Welcome.
Today's Takumi is Masashi Hori, who runs an audio equipment company. Can I see your speakers?
Yes, this is our flat panel speaker. Here.
What? This is a speaker? But it's really thin. Here is Hori's speaker alongside a conventional speaker of roughly the same size. A conventional speaker with a diameter of 25 centimeters must be about 10 centimeters deep. But Hori's entire flat panel speaker is just 1 centimeter deep. And their thinness isn't the only thing that makes Hori's speakers special. I listened to a recording while standing directly in front of the speaker.
当駅では喫煙所を除きまして終日禁煙となっております。
When I moved just a little bit to the side,
皆様のご協力をお願いいたします。当駅では
The volume was greatly reduced. This is the other unique characteristic of Hori speakers.
Just by moving a little, it sounds like the volume is decreased by 1/8.
This speaker's ability to direct sound lies in the way it's constructed. Speakers produce sound by vibrating a diaphragm made of paper or polyester using a magnet. Conventional speakers typically use one magnet. By placing a speaker like this in water, we can see the sound waves it produces. Notice how the waves radiate outwards. These kinds of waves are called spherical waves. But the sound waves from a flat panel speaker travel straight forward without radiating. These are called plane waves. This flat panel speaker contains many magnets. Each magnet creates spherical waves. When the waves merge, they effectively turn into plane waves, carrying the sound straight forward. Hori has created a thin flat panel speaker that can direct its sound with laser beam focus. Where exactly are Hori speakers used? Large conference rooms where sound needs to be delivered all the way to the back. Also at train stations, by directing the sound, announcements for different platforms won't be confused. Hori speakers are currently used in about 140 locations in Tokyo.
The purpose of these speakers is to deliver information, to deliver sound to the place where it is needed.
Hori began developing these speakers in 1997 when a client asked if he could make a directional speaker. To keep sound from radiating, Hori lined up many magnets next to one another.
It's like a TV. Thinner lines mean clearer images.
But the sound quality of Hori's first model wasn't up to his standards. The paper used for the diaphragm was too stiff to pick up the vibrations created by the smaller magnets. Hori eventually came across materials called liquid crystal polymers. Molecules in liquid crystal polymers are aligned in a regular manner, so vibrations are carried evenly across their surface. Finally, in 2000, Hori's first flat panel speaker went on sale. For nearly 80 years, basic speaker technology had seen very little innovation. Hori now holds patents for his new invention in the US, South Korea, and China.
There is so much behind the technology that allows speakers to reproduce even the smallest changes in sound. When you've successfully reproduced one kind of sound, you automatically want to aim for an even more difficult goal. I believe we can still create an even better speaker. That speakers are still evolving.
I must have heard the sound from the speakers on the platform of a train station or in other places without recognizing.
You're probably right, and the flat speaker is actually used in the National Diet Building, and it's also found in some cars made by Toyota. And as there's no need for big magnetic components, it only weighs 75 grams, which is a tenth of conventional speakers of comparable size.
That's very impressive.
It is, isn't it? And Mr. Hori hopes that these highly directional speakers can be of use to elderly people with hearing difficulties and also people with sight disabilities as well.
That's very good to hear. I'm looking forward to find out how this technology evolves. So when we come back, we have a report from World Business Satellite.
Man, look at all these cars.
Hey, have you heard, by the way? The Japanese company Kobelco is working to make the world's cars lighter.
So what does that mean?
Kobelco is using aluminum and steel technologies to make car parts and bodies lighter around the world.
Ah, Japanese technology. The country of karate. Ha! Ha! Ha!
Why do we always do that?
I don't know.
The talk of the world. Kobelco.
Panasonic Ultra High Resolution 4K, extending the frontiers of TV.
Vamos lá.
Allowing passions to flow, values to converge, enhancing imagination. Places abloom with captivating images. Bring a new kind of connection to people's lives. Panasonic 4K solutions. Break the boundaries.
Panasonic.
Mitsui and Company.
You're watching Channel Japan. Next, we have a report from TV Tokyo's World Business Satellite. Utsuda-san, what's your topic today?
Yes, we're continuing on the theme of robots, and this time in agriculture. I'm sure you're aware that Japan is facing a shrinking population and an aging one, right. And the problem is especially severe in the countryside, where about 60% of farmers are aged 65 and above.
I see. Well, I was aware of a problem of aging farmers, but didn't realize it was that serious. And I also understand the number of farms themselves is shrinking as well.
Yes, you're right. And in 1990, there were nearly 4 million farms around Japan, but by 2012 the number had fallen to 2.3 million farms.
So what's behind this decline?
Well, a big factor is thought to be that many of the people who supported the agricultural industry since the 1950s are getting old and retiring. And there are other issues such as the lack of successors, and as well as the increase of lower priced imports, which is driving down wages.
I see. Well, with weather a constant problem and the long work hours, being a farmer is hard work even for a younger generation.
Yes, I agree. And there are now moves to borrow the hands of robots, which is a field in which Japan is said to be a world leader. So take a look.
A farm in Matsuyama, Ehime Prefecture. Shigeru Watanabe grows strawberries here. At the peak, he and his wife harvested about 10,000 a day, enough for about 400 packs.
We have to keep picking them even when we're exhausted. It is tough work.
Picking the strawberries without damaging them requires seasoned skill. That made finding extra hands difficult. But in one section, there's an assistant neck and neck with Mr. Watanabe in terms of technique. What he shows us is a strawberry harvesting robot. Its scissors pinch only the stem to pick off the strawberry. There is no contact with the fruit, which is left undamaged. Among the ripened strawberries are those that are still green. But the robot harvests only the red ones. It's able to do that because of this camera. The images it captures are instantly analyzed with the degree of ripeness determined by how much of the surface is red. It is designed to only select ripe fruit. Fully ripe strawberries are easily damaged and said to be difficult to harvest by hand.
The robot picks only the fully ripe ones, so they taste good. They're good strawberries.
It's also possible to turn the strawberries into a brand and sell them for a higher price. But this robot comes at a cost. More than $350,000 per 1,000 square meters. There is no cost now as they are cooperating with the manufacturer to carry out practical trials. On this day, engineers from the company visit. The testing stage is over and they've started commercial sales from April.
How much of a cost would farmers be able to digest in terms of the necessary equipment and robots? I think it will be difficult for most farms now to adopt this with the capital they have.
Shibuya Seiki has been working to continually improve the performance of its robots. They've been able to reduce the price to about half over the past 5 years and began commercial production. But they didn't receive any orders in the first 2 months.
We haven't figured out at what price the farmers would be able to break even. We just don't know the price or volume of strawberries sold in the wholesale market.
Many companies are confident about the capabilities of their robots, but haven't been able to bring down prices to a marketable level. It is a long-standing issue in the industry. This strawberry harvesting robot has actually been selected as part of a government program to put agricultural robots into practical use, receiving R&D funds of about $800,000 through an independent administrative agency over the past 5 years. The National Agriculture and Food Research Organization, which spearheaded the project, has been working with the manufacturer to develop this robot, but has struggled in its commercialization.
Our coordination with the manufacturer before starting the project was insufficient. It's something we need to reflect on.
There are others developing robots with a focus on commercialization. One such company is based in Wakayama Prefecture. A group of people are working on a mandarin orange farm spread out on a steep slope. A man starts putting on a belt-equipped machine.
It's a wearable power assist robot. We call it a power assist suit.
The robot was developed by Professor Eiichi Yagi. He has been researching robots that can help orange farmers who are constantly carrying heavy loads. With a 20-kilogram case of fertilizer, a motor whines and he's able to easily lift it up.
It's the sound of a motor turning.
A motor near the waist area. When a person starts lifting an object, a basic sensor built into the motor detects that action. The motor then begins turning, moving the frame in the same direction as when bringing the body into an upright position. Walking, lifting, and semi-crouching. It assists in these 3 movements, reducing stress on the body. The professor aims to sell this robot to farms across the country.
I want to bring the cost down and sell this for about $10,000 each. We're carrying out research to reach a price that would be acceptable for farmers.
But can a robot be made for such a low cost? We visited a university research lab. They first show us a pair of sneakers. The Power Assist robot requires the use of this special footwear. Inside is a switch, which, when pressed with the feet, emits a wireless signal to start up the motor. They say lowering the cost of this switch is one solution.
By using a simpler foot switch, it will be possible to develop gear, including the wireless device, for about $100.
This is an earlier model. Used were multifunctional sensors for the many joints and high-precision sensors for the footwear, costing a total of $20,000. So the professor scaled back the robot's functions to allow lower-cost switches to be used.
We're aiming for sales of 100 units at $10,000 each in 2 years, and 1,000 units in 3 years.
Has the robot been modified enough to be marketable? The professor visits orange farmer Morifumi Ozawa.
I wanted you to try it out. It's light. Very light. What's the weight? 6.3 kilos?
He slips into the Power Assist robot and starts doing his usual routine on the steep slope.
I usually can't do this. Not this way. It gives me support even while I'm holding it, so I can work with half the effort.
The feedback is good. What about the price?
Our plan is $10,000 in 2 years. 10,000? It'll be tough unless you can get it below $5,000. If we can sell 1,000 units, then $5,000 is possible.
Robots within reach of farmers are still a step away. Bringing them into practical use may require R&D with a focus on marketability.
Well, there are a range of other robots being trialled now, including robot tractors, pesticide sprayers, and even robotic boats that spray herbicide in rice paddies. And using these robots will drastically reduce the time and effort that's needed for farming and could expand the number of one-person farms.
So if the robots we really saw do become widespread, the common notion that the farming is backbreaking work might not apply anymore. Well, moving on, Utsuda-san, what's our next topic?
Yes, next we'll be looking at the forestry industry. And if you'll take a look at this graph over here, it shows the market size of the industry. And as you can see, it's been in a long period of decline. In 1980, the industry was valued at over $10 billion, but in recent years, it's been stuck at around $4 billion.
So I assume that the number of people working in the forest industry is shrinking as well.
Yes, you're right. And compared to the peak of about 150,000 forestry workers, there are now just 1/3 of that number. So it's definitely falling.
Right.
But if you look at the segment of just young people in the industry, it's actually growing.
Really? Why is that?
Well, I have another graph over here that shows the number of new forestry workers. And prior to 2001, the number was about 2,000. But in 2003, it increased to more than 4,000.
Right.
And in subsequent years, it stayed above or around 3,000.
I see. That's good. Yeah.
And yes, there's also been a big push by regions with big forestry industries to recruit young workers as a way to revitalize the local economy. And we have a report on some of these new initiatives, so take a look.
Kofu City, Yamanashi. Prefectural Road 7 that cuts through fields and forests. The sound of chainsaws echoes across the woods.
Right now, we're using equipment to cut down trees that are obstructing the scenery at this tourist site.
Pine trees in this prefectural forest are being felled to fight weevils that cause the wood to wither. Carrying out the work is Fujiwara Zorin, a local forestry firm. Quietly putting up signs and handing other minor tasks such as cleaning is a young man. 22-year-old Daisuke Shindo joined the company this spring. He recently graduated from the agricultural department of Shinshu University.
I still can't do the work as smoothly as everyone else. I'm impressed by what they do.
The senior employees have high hopes for Mr. Shindo.
It's dangerous, tough work. And few people want to do it, so he deserves credit for coming here.
Forestry workers nationwide totaled 146,321 in 1980, but had fallen to a third to 51,200 by 2010. Over the past 2 decades, the labor force has continued to shrink. But by age, young workers under 35 years old, such as Mr. Shindo, have increased by nearly 1,000 compared to 10 years ago, reaching 3,190 in 2012. A big reason is the promotion of green employment by the Forestry Agency. Companies in the industry receive $900 annually for 3 years for every new hire to pay for training costs. Additional subsidies are provided for necessary training materials. Mr. Shindo has also been hired as part of this program. About $20,000 is paid to the company every year.
The forestry industry is facing a labor shortage. So we hope to recruit new people to merge old and new trends and open up a new direction.
Under this program, 16 people have been hired so far. Of those, 7 have stayed with the company. They say the other 9 left after 2 to 3 years. Getting young workers to stay on remains a big issue.
I believe it's necessary to improve the skills of each worker and to set salaries based on an evaluation of their abilities and performance.
The key to worker retention is ensuring that young hires feel a sense of personal achievement. On this day, new recruit Mr. Shindo is allowed to handle the chainsaw for the first time.
I'm still making a lot of unnecessary movements. I keep going back and forth, so I'm not there yet. I'll try.
Training is said to be crucial in getting new recruits to work independently.
From now on, the forestry industry won't be about local rivalry. Instead, we'll have to face competition from wood overseas. That's what we need to focus on in training our workers.
Competition from lumber overseas is a battle over price. With the surge in imported lumber from Asia and other regions, prices of domestic products have slumped to a third from the peak in 1980. So the company president is working to develop new types of construction materials. He teamed up with a local lumber mill. This is the president, Takehiro Furuya.
Pine, cedar, larch. Making some samples would be an idea. You're right, it's nice wood.
They are developing a new type of flooring material. Selected from the samples is red pine, which is now rarely found in homes. As it easily deforms when processed, red pine has only been used in special circumstances. But by storing the wood in a warehouse and letting 10% of its moisture evaporate, they have successfully developed a versatile flooring material. The aim is to market it as a high value-added product for use in luxury condominiums.
This is something that has rarely been used until now. We were hoping to develop something that could have new applications. If we can create a Yamanashi brand, so much the better.
Their survival hangs on the ability to enhance the brand value of their products. Falling lumber prices can lead to the destruction of forest lands themselves. Hita, Oita Prefecture, following Koichiro Shimazu of the local Forest Preservation and Management Cooperative into the mountains.
Warp trees like that have no value.
Numerous trees that can't be sold as lumber are left standing. If forest thinning had been carried out to prevent overgrowth, trees such as these wouldn't be here. It's a sign that the forest hasn't been looked after. Falling lumber prices have made thinning economically unviable. But recently, work has restarted on this mountain. So why?
Typically, even if you cut these trees, there isn't a market for them. So we just left them there. But now we've found customers who are willing to buy the wood for use in power generation.
Last November, a biomass power plant was built in the region. It generates enough electricity to supply half the households in the city. Used as fuel is the wood left over from forest thinning. 1 ton of the material is sold for about $70. The president of the biomass power company, Masami Moriyama, is a former forestry worker. He says the time is ripe for a revival of Japan's forestry industry.
Seedlings planted after the war have grown up. These forests are man-made.
In fact, trees planted on a massive scale after the end of the Second World War in anticipation of rebuilding demand are just now reaching maturity to be felled for use as construction material. But the reality is, many forests have been left to grow unrestricted. The hope is that they will be brought under control by selling the wood for use as fuel to biomass power plants.
If mountains can generate stable revenue, it will become possible to better manage forests and lead to more job creation.
In fact, since the plant went online, the number of companies participating in the cooperative's forest thinning project has increased to 4. They believe that in the future, business will expand from simply thinning forests to sourcing lumber from properly maintained mountains, allowing the industry to grow again.
Mountain owners who are struggling with this problem have the same view as forestry companies. They want a business that will last not just 20 years, but 30 or 40 years.
Forests make up more than 60% of the Japanese islands. New muscle and new ideas may be needed for the industry to plant its roots back into the ground.
Wow, wood chips as a way to generate electricity, it's very interesting. But if they can take better advantage of their resources, I think it would help contribute to the development of the industry.
I agree. And one interesting fact is that Japan has the 3rd highest forest coverage rate among developed countries, as you can see, following Finland and Sweden.
Is that so? That's quite surprising. It's hard to imagine that the 70% of land in Japan is covered by forest.
I know, and I'm sure there are other ways to better utilize this resource.
I think so too. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Channel Japan. We have much more in store for you, so make sure to tune in next week.
Tomorrow never ends with you. With you, when the morning falls, we there so long. Well, I know we'll never
For life's greatest moments. Bridgestone.
For the glorious future, leading the world in service and technology, from Japan to the world. East Japan Railway Company.
Mitsubishi Electric is helping to change the environment for the better around the world.
Green subway systems in India.
Green solar power systems in Singapore.
Sistem AC ramah lingkungan di Indonesia.
Eco changes for a greener tomorrow. Mitsubishi Electric.
Sasuke, a new type of sports entertainment program conquering the world.
It's about human achievement and people's passions, and I think that relates to almost everybody.
From Japan to the world, Ninja Warrior, Tokyo Broadcasting System.